Come the Guardians.
Yeah, I have statistics to back up that we have people that listen.
Mike Schaefer.
Anytime there's sort of a debate as to who can do something, Happer would always put his name forth, for sure.
Husker 24/7 on the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
I could be a star.
All right, we're joined now on the hotline here by our good friend Mike Schaefer of Husker 247. Hello, Mike Schaefer. How are you?
I am doing quite well, Connor Happer. How was your weekend?
Good. I almost called you Michael, and I don't know. Maybe I thought I was talking to your cohort there at Brunt's, but so sorry. I almost did that. I didn't do it, though.
That's all right. It happens about a dozen times a year, usually when I'm just talking to my mom. That's about the only time the Michael comes out, but that's fine. If you wanted to go that route, I would have answered to it.
It would have been a mistake. I don't think I've ever done that before. You've either been Mike or Schaefer. How was your weekend? Did you enjoy your Nebrasketball this weekend?
Yeah, it was nice. I went to UNO versus South Dakota.
Oh yeah, that's right. Why were you right behind the wrestlers?
I don't know. The tickets were available. Shelby and I, we were getting to one game, and we were like, let's just sit on the floor seats at Baxter Arena. And so we bought them, and we just happened to sit right behind the Outrunners, I think is their name. So the highlight of which was they had went and got food during one of the media timeouts and came back, and Truth Magnum, I think is one of the names.
Okay.
For sure. Truth Magnum sits down, and he's got a couple of things in his hands of food, and he sets the nachos down. And unfortunately for him, as he set the nachos down, they spilled all over the floor. So he didn't get to fully enjoy his nachos. He seemed kind of bummed by that. But I will say, for two people that were brought in as a promotional thing, they seemed to be into the game. They were excited about, UNO winning. Obviously, I think when it was a 26-point game, they weren't really concerned about it. But then it got down to a 4-point game, and they were into it. I appreciated that.
I did not know that Truth Magnum spilled his nachos. I did. That's a tough look.
Inside info that arrives from Mike Schaefer with Husker 24/7.
Wow, look at that! You're on the scene, man. I saw the picture. I was like, "What is going on here? Why is Schaefer sitting directly next to these people?"
I'm getting texts from people that were like, "Why are you part of the wrestling entourage?" And I was like, "I wasn't. I bought seats, and they just happened to be right behind them."
You bought seats, specifically those seats, for that game. Like you don't go to UNO basketball games that often, do you?
That's why we were like, let's just go sit on the floor. It sounds great. And it was. And the amazing thing is I've watched a bunch of Summit basketball, so the league is not new to me, or the quality of the league is not new to me. But sitting that close to basketball,
it's beautiful.
Even the Summit level, watching JJ White and Sutton and UNO's players, it's just incredible because an even higher version of college basketball, how little space there is for those people to operate and to be able to get their shot off and to move. And I love it. Like sitting, if you ever get the opportunity to sit courtside, and seats are available at UNO, and they play a game on Saturday to potentially win outright the league. Absolutely do it. It's just a really, really cool experience, and it certainly was not cost prohibitive.
Okay, check is in the mail. They're from about 60th and Dodge, as we talked about earlier, Schaefer. Good job. And if you ever get the chance to sit directly behind professional wrestlers, you should probably take that opportunity too.
I didn't engage them in any conversation other than I joked about the spilled nachos. That was about it. That was the entirety of the conversation.
You joked about what?
When he spilled the nachos.
Oh, okay. So you
had visibly reacted, and I was like, "Oh yeah, man, that's a bummer." He's like, "Yeah, I was most excited about those." That was the exchange.
Your conversation with Truth Magnum was, "Oh man, bummer about those spilled nachos." Am I right?
What else was I going to add? We've had very, very different lives. We're about the same age. He looks like he's 15 years older than me. He's a professional wrestler. I'm a professional message board daycare operator, if you would. We have entirely different. There's nothing for us to talk about. We took very divergent paths to getting to the floor seats at Omaha for UNO versus South Dakota. I could probably name multiple players on the court, and he probably couldn't,
Right.
even with jersey numbers and names. There was no reason for me to bother him.
Yeah,
And,
no.
We shared a moment over spilled nachos, and we'll have that forever.
They bring spilled nachos. They bring everybody together, and I'm glad they did the other night as well. Schaefer, where have you landed on the whole Nebraska, Tennessee? Are they ducking them? Is it money? Well, like where have you landed here after 72 hours of digesting everything?
You've known me for a while. You've done radio with me. You've talked with me about sports topics. I'm going to allow you to guess where Mike Schaefer has landed on Nebraska, Tennessee scheduling snafu.
I'm going to guess that you have remained above the fray, even though you watched the message boards and see all of the topics and all of the conversation, that you haven't moved off of the idea that you initially had, which was, yeah, I guess I get it. This is college football in 2025, and Nebraska is just taking part of it now.
That's almost verbatim where it's at. I mean, the strongest opinion I have on this is it felt like Nebraska did a poor job of controlling the narrative. That would be my biggest take. Is that had they done a better job coming out with this, with the news and not allowing Danny White to kind of paint Nebraska in a specific way, it could have looked better or operated better when the news finally arrived. But as for the actual news, the series that I never thought was going to be played after it got rescheduled once and where the future of college football was headed, it was a shrug for me. Like, I can't get myself to get worked up about it. I don't think it means terrible things for the future of college football or for the future of Nebraska or for the future of college football scheduling and Nebraska scheduling. I can't get there with it. They canceled the series. They clearly are prioritizing playing someone that isn't Tennessee. I understand that they play 9 conference games as it is. I accept it. I'm fine with it, and my life moves on from it. Like, the part of it that I found disingenuous is the idea that it's that closely related to income that you need from an 8th home game and whatever else. I mean, I just don't. Just come out and say that it doesn't fit with the schedule that you desire for the 2026 and 2027 season, while acknowledging that Nebraska plays 9 conference games and they already have enough of a challenge and you'd like to have one more home game. Just say it like that. Don't try to spin it that you need the economics because of the stadium or whatever else. Like, nobody really cares that much. It just comes across as hollow. And I don't think they needed to. Tennessee plays 8 conference games. You play 9. Leave it at that. Like, that would have been enough for me. The rest of it, like I said, I am completely nonplussed as it comes down to what this means for future of big helmet matchups outside of conference play.
So which garnered more of a reaction from you, the news of this or the spilled nachos at the UNO game?
I probably reacted more visibly to the spilled nachos. It's one of those where you do the body English where you're like, oh, your hands go up with it.
Yeah. But you're trying not to make that big of a deal out of it because, people are watching.
He feels terrible, and they're probably not going to take him back up to the spot to get the free food again.
Yeah.
And nobody offered to go get him nachos. Not throwing anybody under the bus here, but there was nobody that was like, hey, man, you spilled your nachos. You're here for us. We'll go get you another. That never happened.
Wow. Disappointing. Okay. So back to the Tennessee thing. As a college football fan, remember, Nebraska is not the first school to do this. And these two teams aren't the first schools to erase future dates off of their non-conference schedules. It's a trend, as you've said. But like, as a college football fan, how do you feel about these games going away? Like, as a person who enjoys college football and watching these types of programs going up against each other?
If there's anything I feel certain about, it's that the shape of college football and the scope of college football and even out of conference scheduling could be radically different by the time we get to 2027. This sport seemingly undergoes a different shift of what its future looks like every other month. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So it's hard. That's a big part of it. Like, my reaction was very different when Nebraska didn't want to play Oklahoma, because that came out in May with just a few months before the game was going to happen. These games are well over a year out from on the schedule, or multiple years out from on the schedule. We don't know what the sport is going to look like. We don't know how many teams are going to be in the playoffs. We don't know how many conferences are going to exist. There's so much that changes seemingly every other month in college football, and the rules and how it's governed and who's going to be eligible to play. It's really hard to, I think, write an opinion piece or to hold an opinion that we know anything about what out of conference play is going to look like in 26 and 27. We barely know what's ahead in store for us for 2025. So I just think as the sport continues to evolve, we should just be as nimble as possible, because things are going to look very different. I mean, these two teams could end up playing in a conference together if there's a super conference someday. So it's just, it's hard for me to overreact to it, because I just think there's so many unknowns where college football is going. Would I prefer that there are no games against FCS teams, or that teams like Nebraska schedule as strongly as possible? Sure. Like, from a viewing standpoint, that would be great. But for what Nebraska needs, I see no problem with them playing two teams from the MAC and an FCS school. You know why? Because I watched Michigan do it in 23 and win a title. I watched Ohio State do it this past year without much of a schedule. I don't think there's a reason to get that upset with it. Kansas State did this for 2 decades. Nebraska just has to stack wins. It's where they are as a program. I understand it from their standpoint. And I think I just don't think there's as much vitriol as maybe gets displayed. I think the people that are really unhappy with it are the loudest. But most people, not to parrot what Tom Chattel wrote from talking with Troy Dana, I just don't think there's that much anger about this. I think it's sort of discussed in a sense of, it's a bummer that good teams don't play good teams as much anymore. I think that's sort of where it's at.
I agree. I sort of sense the same thing, because people are. I mean, there's also the natural inclination of like taking the side of the school that you root for too, and there's that piece of it,
and that absolutely has to be mentioned as part of the conversation. But it's also, if Nebraska doesn't have a marquee out of conference matchup and things stay similar, it'd be the first time in however long. I mean, this year they kind of have a weird one with Cincinnati, that's a Big 12 school, but they played Oklahoma, Colorado, UCLA, Miami, Washington, all of these programs in the last decade. Like, it's not like Nebraska can be accused of doing this consistently. So if it happens one time in a series that's already been rescheduled previous from its initial iteration, I don't think there's a reason to get too bent out of shape on it.
Schaefer, what do you think about tonight at Pinnacle Bank Arena?
I am an idiot, and so I think it sets up well for Nebraska. Michigan coming off of the Michigan State game, short rest, coming on the road. Nebraska has been off since Wednesday. They know that this is a critical game. It means a lot more for Nebraska than it does for Michigan. I'm guessing you have noticed this. Michigan's last 7 wins in conference play have come by 4 points or less. So I would expect this to be a close game. I would expect Pinnacle Bank Arena to be rocking. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think Nebraska is going to get a marquee victory tonight, which would be yet another win over a top 25 team. They will help solidify their resume, and it all sets up for what could be the stink bomb of all stink bombs on Saturday.
Yeah, there's always that. But hey, the signature win is the signature win. Now, is this happening without you sitting courtside next to wrestlers with nachos tonight? You're sitting up higher?
I don't know of any AEW wrestlers that are expected to be in the area. I will be in the arena. I will actually be sitting next to Jake Sorensen. I had an extra ticket, and I was like, who is the craziest person that I could annoy people with by bringing into my section? And he was the first person that came to mind.
Yeah, so you nailed it.
He's accompanying me to the game tonight, and apologies to everybody. And I don't know, what are we, 112, 111, somewhere over there.
Enjoy the 2 hours of him talking about Jack Caglione to you.
How many "let's go" do you think he will scream between the opening tip-off and the last moment of the game.
A lot. How many times do you think? Should we actually set an over under and maybe you could count and I'll trust your judgment on this one.
I'm going to sneak in one of those because I think I have one in my baseball bag back when I either pitched
Oh,
or stood next to the coach and was more or less a team manager while on the roster.
The clicker?
I have one of those counters. I'll just sit there and just, have it in my jacket, and I'll just hit it every time he says
So
it.
I actually want to count fist bumps and or high fives.
What about and people who don't know Jake Sorensen, his go-to motion when he's excited is like a modified, not really raise the roof because he does it palms up, and he's just like telling everyone to get up while he sways his arms up and down.
Yep.
He'll do that at least 70 times.
Yeah, that seems not quantifiable.
I know putting a number on this is going to be really difficult.
Yeah, so if we did maybe just like contact fist bumps plus high fives, over the entire. Are you going for beers before the game? I assume.
I will be post game.
Okay.
Pre-game is hard now as a father.
Okay.
Post game's hard as a father. Just getting 3 hours is difficult. But
yeah. So let's just say inside the arena, like at the game, 17 and a half fist bumps plus high fives.
Okay.
That's where we'll set it.
I will see if I can track this, and we'll let you know where things are at later this evening.
Okay. Bring your clicker. All right, Schaefer. Good to talk as always.